Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Social Explorer tutorial. Here we'll be going through 10 steps for navigating Social Explorer, just to help you guys feel a little bit more comfortable in navigating the site, seeing some of the great features that it has to offer, and to ask any questions you have as we go along here. In future sessions, we'll talk about diving into a bit more of the details and creating your own projects and what we can do to help out with that, and the other features that may be involved. But right now we're just going to focus on kind of moving around the site and seeing all the different variables and features that it has to offer. The first step for navigating is obviously to log in to Social Explorer. So we're here at socialexplorer.com, and if we move our mouse over to the right-hand side, we can see the login button. And I'll click that. To log into the site, you do have to contact one of us here at the UIC's GIS. We'll be able to use any email address that you give us to sign in, and then we'll create a password for you, and then you can edit that in the future to be a password that's specific for you. So I'm just entering in my email that I've associated, and I'm going to log in. So here it brings up my main page. Here you can see that I have some projects, some of these that we will be looking through as I scroll down. As you guys create and edit your own projects, these will show up here. First thing that we're going to do is just kind of explore the maps. So this is step 2 on the PDF. Opening the maps, so we're just going to go up here to the top where it says Maps, click on that, and it brings up this nice introductory slide. We're going to first explore this US demography by clicking the Start Here button. This will load. It brings up this welcome screen here at the first. If you're navigating this on your own, you can go ahead and click on the Take the Tour if you'd like to see some more of the features. But for now, since we're doing a guided tour, we're going to click the Skip. As you go through this, and if you don't want to see the tour option again, you can just click down here to toggle the Do Not Show Again option. Skip that. So the first thing that we want to note here in navigating the maps is we can see a map of the United States here, all the states with their initials and abbreviations. But first what we're going to do is we're going to look at the zoom feature. The zoom feature is in the bottom left-hand corner. You can press the plus button to zoom in, obviously. As you zoom in, you'll see that the maps bring up greater and greater detail. We zoom in, we see the states and capitals. Zoom in again, and we will see counties start appearing. And if I click this zoom a few times, we're going to zoom in real close here, and we can see the individual names of those counties as that appears for you guys. And even further, we can get down into greater detail. I look here in Gage County, Nebraska. We start seeing, as it zooms in for you guys, we zoom in, we see the highways, and as you focus more on populated areas, as we're going to look at Beatrice, you can see individual state highways, streets, and as you look at the bottom left-hand side too, near your zoom, it shows you what zoom level you're at and also the scale. And those individual streets, as we zoom in one more time, become more present. Third step is looking, or the fourth step is looking at the search tool. So if there's a specific area that you want to focus on, whether that is an address, we can look at home address. You can enter your home address here. You can enter your birthplace. We will look at the area around UIC. So as I type that in, it starts to fill it in for us. I can click on that, and that'll bring us to the address with the marker on the map indicating where that is. It starts out here at zoom level 10, but if we want to, again, focus more, we can zoom in, we can zoom out. If you have a physical mouse, you can use the scroll wheel on that to be able to zoom in and out as well. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on our location here. I'm going to go back up to zoom level 15. I'll wait until it loads for you guys. So you can see where the UIC campus is located. The next feature we're going to talk about is the mouse over feature. So the mouse over feature is where you, like you can see here where my mouse is hovering over an area, it brings up information about that area. Right here it's the census tract 8177 in Cook County, Illinois, and the factor that we're looking at right now is population density. That's how many people there are per square mile. And in this area there's 8,098.2 people per square mile. Now going back down to the bottom left-hand corner, we have the zoom out feature again, and I'm going to zoom out a ways so we can see the differences in the mouse over feature here. So again, things become less detailed as we zoom out. And now here we look at Cook County and we get the population density for the entire Cook County there. Everybody able to follow along? And is there any questions at this time? Well, please feel free to speak up if you have any questions. Interrupt me at any time. So as we're looking at this, we found the search feature, we found the mouse over feature. You can see the different census tracts. You can see them highlighted by the white outline there as we move around. And then what we're going to do here now is actually start changing the data to see what we look at. Now to change the data, that's in the upper left-hand corner. And as we hover over the button, it turns to a kind of a nice orange red. We'll click on that. And here we see the survey year. And it lists all the years that there are for the survey. This gray slider bar underneath shows us how far back the data will go. To as far back as they've been collecting the census data, and that's back to 1790. And there are the census is taken every 10 years, but there are some other surveys that come up in between. There's the 5-year, 3-year, and 1-year American Community Surveys. So you can see in 2009, 2008, some of that data is available, but it's not available for all years and all decades. As we go down, we can change the different, as we look, we're still in year 2010, but we can look at all the different categories that are available here. There's a slider bar on the right-hand side too, a gray slider bar. Sometimes it's a little tricky to see as I don't click it. See, it kind of goes to a lighter gray. So you use that to move up and down, and we see anything that's in bright color is something that we can click on and look at. Things that are grayed out are ones that aren't available for this particular survey. So if we look and click on income, we see the title of the survey that comes up there, and each of these is used for a heading as we scroll down. Now here there is the slider bar on the side, but this time it's gotten really small. So these can get away from you sometimes, and it's kind of hard to see, but as we grab that and drag down, you see that all the categories that come up. Let me see if I can. And then as I move down, here comes another heading. And then the different data that's available for those 3-year estimates. So going back, and then if we want to go back to the list of categories, we can click that again. And let's say we were interested in education. We click on the education button. And if we want to see the population 25 years and older, let's see how many people in this area have some college. So now as we change the data, what we're looking at comes to the top of the screen, tells us what we're looking at, population 25 years and over, and some college or more. We hover over that track again, and it looks like that 77% of the people in that area have had some college or more. And there's a whole bunch of different data displays and different types of data that you can look at there. Now, it can seem overwhelming at first, but we can definitely help you, anybody who's interested in trying to navigate the variables and the information that's best suited for them and what they're trying to teach. Next, what we're going to look at is how the data is displayed. That's up here. So it's a visualization type. Right now we're in the shaded area. And as I click this, it brings up 3 different types of visualization: shaded area, bubbles, and dot density. And each one provides a little bit of information on that as well, on how that's visualized. Now some of the area, or some of the data is only visible in certain types. Bubbles and dot density tend to pair together, and sometimes things are just available in shaded area. So if I go back to change the data and I look at population and total population, it changes the visualization type automatically. And I'm going to zoom out here back to about a level of 8. So we still see the Chicago area, and now we're into bubbles as well. So as I click on this visualization type again, the shaded area is now grayed out. We're not able to look at that because it's not available for this type of this data display. But there are 2 different types. We can look at bubbles or dot density. Before moving on to a different type of visualization, I'll show you the key here that shows this bubble size represents the value of 63,000. So 63,000 people is represented by a bubble of that size. As we click on this, we can make that bubble become bigger or smaller by dragging on this slider bar here. So as we shrink it down, it's harder to tell differences. As it gets, we can watch it grow though and get bigger. And then sometimes it gets too big and it looks like the United States has a bad case of the chicken pox. So that makes it obviously a lot harder to read, and now Chicago is kind of blurred out. So we want to have it at a nice size that is able to show differences and proportions, but also that we can still read the features of the map. The visualization can also be changed by different colors too. This may be advantageous for those with different viewing preferences, depending on the brightness of the screen or individual's eyesight. Some colors are obviously a little bit more pleasing than others. Going back up here to the visualization type. And here we go back to the dot density, a little bit different type of visualization. So here we see dots scattered around, much smaller case of the chicken pox here. And we look at the total population, and each one of these dots, look here, our key says 1 dot represents a value of 2,500. Again, we can click on this here. Anywhere on this part will bring this menu up, and we can toggle that to show more dots. As we increase that, the dot represents a value that's smaller, so 200 people, and less as we go. Now, one thing that commonly comes up when people first look at these maps is they say they see these dots here, and we think that this dot may be in Greene County, Wisconsin, that maybe that dot is where those people are located. But that's actually not the case. These dots are randomly distributed throughout the area of these counties. So in Madison County, much of the people or in Dane County, Wisconsin, where Madison is, there's a lot of the people are located around the capital, but the dots are dispersed throughout the county. So that's one thing that some students struggle with, thinking at first that the dots represent where the people are, but really it's just a visual representation in that area. Are there any questions about this before we move on? So as we're looking at this, we can zoom back out and in to see how so now the counties, individual county names have disappeared, but we can still see them. And then as we zoom further out, the dots become dispersed. And again, here's a good representation as you guys catch up here to my screen. I'll zoom back in one more. So it should be at zoom level 5. So in Chicago, you would see that all the dots, if they were clustered around where people were, they'd be highly concentrated around Chicago, but instead they're just distributed evenly and randomly throughout the state. You look out west, and you see out in Wyoming and Montana, people are a lot more dispersed and less population there. So that's kind of the walkthrough of those features for now. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn your attention to a few specific maps we have that represent and demonstrate some of the other different features of Social Explorer. So now we're going to look at different annotations. So here's one of the projects that we've created. And you know what? Here's the one that I'm looking for as it pulls up for you guys. So here on this map, you can see the title. This is about the Great Migration and corresponds to letters that were written to the Chicago Defender. That's in the upper left-hand corner there. And you can see these blue annotations around. And these mark individual cities that letters to the Chicago Defender were written. And these are some resources that we have, and we're going to click on here on Hernando, Mississippi. And as I click on that, this little text box comes up here. This window shows us what the annotation says in its own box, and then we have this resource that's linked to it as well. So as I click on that, it opens up in the same browser window. And here's that letter to the Chicago Defender. And we also have here at the bottom a source for where that letter came from. So that's a nice way of being able to include those for the students. We can take this source here. We can either right-click, copy, or Control-C, and I can bring that up in a new window. And it'll go right to, oh, well, now they retired the site, so we just need to update that. That was working yesterday. But we can pull up those resources and cite them out, show students where those are found outside. But this is also very helpful because when this annotation comes up here with this text, it's all in the same window. Students can navigate this quickly and easily, and you'll find that they are very fluid with doing this and navigating themselves around. And that way they aren't distracted by pop-up windows and other things and trying to retrace their steps. Any questions about annotations? The annotations also don't have to be specific cities. They can be anything you want. We can outline individual cities, communities, neighborhoods. We can highlight rivers, roads, you know, any points of interest. I'll show you that you're moving to one of our single maps. And this is corresponds to a book called The Warmth of Other Suns, and talks about the journeys of three different people, Ida Mae, George, and Robert. And here we've annotated where they started. This one was here in Union County, Chickasaw County, Mississippi, and then going to Chicago. That was Ida Mae's route. We have one color there. We've got George's route going from Eustis, Florida to New York City, and then also Robert's from Monroe, Louisiana to Los Angeles. So you can also mark kind of the route that they might have taken. This we decided to do a straight line route, and then the students might be able to look at a map then and zoom in possibly and try to figure out exactly, you know, they went from that area to the other, but what highways, what railroads, what other means of transportation they might have taken to get across the United States there. And as if I were to zoom in further, you could see those individual roads. So this is a single map that we're looking at here. There's just one map on screen, nothing to the side, and right now we're looking at the percent black, percent of the population that identified as being black based on the 1990 census data. And so we've been able to title that up here, but then the actual data that's pulled from the census and how that was listed is directly below that. These can be configured up here individually. So that's the individual map. Next we'll look at a side-by-side map. If I can pull. So here's one of our side-by-side maps as it comes up for you guys. The side-by-side map shows the same location, but can display different information. So right now we're looking at Chicago. I think there's a little village here, and that's one of the annotations we've made to outline that area. You can zoom in, and the nice feature about this is both sides of the map correspond to each other. As I drag on one side and zoom in, it sticks with it on the other side. So that's great for showing the same location but different data. So here we have census data on the left-hand side from 1950. It's looking at race, and race being identified as other. So not all the census asks the same question. As we look on the right-hand side, in 1970, they started asking the question of Spanish origin or descent, and it shows the differences. So here, there's a lot of interesting questions you could ask of why there's a difference between 1950 and 1970. What motions or what push and pull factors may have brought people of Spanish origin or descent to start living in this area in Chicago in 1970, or maybe why they weren't identified as heavily in the 1950s. Maybe the census just wasn't asking the right questions to identify those people. So lots of questions, lots of ideas that you could start bouncing around with your students. On the left-hand side here, we have a series of maps as well. So here we can look at that same area, but look at different variables as well. So here, the census year changed, started asking more specific questions in 1990, and on the right-hand side in 2010, a different question. So the information can require some critical thinking to the students to figure out exactly what those questions were driving at and what kind of information could be obtained from it. Next, I'm going to show a swipe map. Swipe maps are really cool for being able to visualize the changes between different years or different data variables. So here we have a map of the United States. On the left-hand side, we have the census data from 1910, asking about the black percentage of population. And on the right-hand side, in 2010, those who identified as being black or African American alone. And in the middle here, like the side-by-side map, we have a dividing bar, but the difference here is this bar can actually be dragged left to right on both sides, and it can go all the way across the screen. And as we drag it back to the right, we can see big differences. If you look around the Chicago area, you can see the bubble sizes have changed drastically. So we look in 1910 on the left of the line there. We can hover over and see that the total population was around 2.5 million, 2.4 million, and the black percentage was only just under 2% there. As we slide this back to the left, we're looking at the 2010 data, and the bubbles have gotten so big that it's harder to focus on. See if we can pull up Cook County here. Cook County, as I get to the edge of the bigger circle, the total population reads 5.1 million, and the black, identifying as black or African American, becomes 25%. So again, lots of questions you can ask about why the race percentages changed, what drove those people there, why those differences are, how they think that the city might have changed. People change locations as well, but they change those locations that they moved to. So what kind of communities were built, and what kind of support systems would those people bring with them? And again, if we just want to look all the way for 1910, I can slide this all the way to the right, and then slide it back if we just wanted to see 2010. So the slider maps are really cool for being able to see those big changes quickly, or even smaller changes depending on how the information is visualized. Again, if we wanted to change the size of these bubbles, since they are rather large on the right-hand side, we can click here on the bubble size and drag this down to make those smaller. And there makes the map a little bit more readable, but we do need to be careful about this when students do this, because here it looks like from 1910 to 2010 there hasn't been much of a big change, because the Chicago bubble today is about the same size, but we need to make sure we point them back to the key here that's showing that this bubble size represents about 500,000 people, where on the left-hand side it only represents 20,000. So if we make the left-hand side to match that, make that smaller, we can then see the big change again. So I'm going to show you the sequence maps again with a different example. Here's one that highlights Chicago as the line drawn around here, and then also Bronzeville. And on the left-hand side, we have the sequence of maps. And as we click on those, I click on the second slide right now. We're looking at 1940 census data. We click on the second slide, and that changes to 1960, 1980, year 2000, and then finally 2010. And the colors on these maps really start to tell a story, start to get kids interested and excited, and it's great to have these interactive maps where they can quickly look back and forth and compare things, and really makes maps exciting again. Now here, if you ever want to get lost or want to go back to Social Explorer, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, there is the link to clicking Visiting Social Explorer. Nice thing about that too is it always opens a new window there. So if you wanted to look at multiple maps at once, like I have here, I can go back to either clicking on Maps or clicking on my own projects by clicking on my name and pulling up all those projects there. Now, one other thing I'm going to show right now too, since we do have a little bit of time, is just the share feature. On the top, we have our title bar, the title of this project, so the race population change between 1910 and 2010, but then also there's this nice share button. If we just wanted to, if this project, that I'll send out these links to all these different maps that we viewed here, responding back to that email that was the invite today with all these links, but then we can copy these links, copy it to the clipboard, either right-click and paste if we wanted to include that, or share via these features at the bottom. Can send out an email directly from the website as well, and then embedding it within a website. So that's a great way of sharing those links and being able to invite those to other people. We can also export the image just of this map, or we can also use a PowerPoint to be able to show multiple maps. So those are the features of Social Explorer. Some things that we'll cover in future sessions are how to create those individual projects, how to edit them, how to save them. Kind of went over a little of the sharing today, but also how to collaborate. You don't have to be the sole creator of these maps. We can collaborate with you. We're happy here at UIC to be able to help you guys feel comfortable in making those maps and getting them to show what you want to show, but also amongst other teachers, friends, family, other people who you might feel like might be able to help you out with that. If you want to do that, you can collaborate with them so that you both can edit a project. Showing how projects can tell a story, kind of with those sequence of maps, and then the rationale for some of the design decisions on what you want the maps themselves to show. There is a great amount of data that these can show. As we pull down this on the right-hand side, as you're creating these maps, you can be able to show the names of the states, the individual cities based on size, capitals, waterways, those sorts of things are available. So depending on what kind of information you want your students to be able to see, or how much you want them to be engaged with, or how much you want them to focus on individual things, you can add or remove those informational points if you need to. The different levels of the census data, the My Variables feature, there's a great feature that they just added into Social Explorer. One of the things that you can do is for a project for students to look at, here we've created one where they can look using this change data. These variables are the ones that we've selected for them. So these are quick and easy. Instead of having to go through all this census data and trying to pick out the right variables that you want them to focus on, we can quickly customize those so that they're able to look at those and bring them up. So if we wanted to be able to look at quick differences in 1910 between black and white populations, we can look at that. We're looking at the same year here, but using that slider feature again to show. And those can go across different time spans as well. So as we look into 2010 here, there's a lot more categories of different races that were available. And then also teacher-enabled restrictions. So in addition to making that easier for students to find out, we can also restrict things such as zoom level. If you really want them to focus on the United States as a whole, we can limit that zoom level to being at 5. We can limit that between 4 and 6. We can also limit that to being very zoomed in if you want them to just focus on one area. So those kind of features sometimes can help to keep kids and students focused on the areas that they need to be, or if you want to let them have free reign creating their own projects, they can do that as well, and not having restrictions there. Now I'm going to pull away from full screen on the browser here. So, Mike, do you have any questions, or is there anything else that you'd like to see specifically that we can go through a little bit more in depth? Anything that was not made clear or that you'd like to see explored a little bit more?
No, to get the bubble size, you just pull the arrow on the right-hand side of it down, right?
Yep, so as I click here on the, I just click bubbles, and we have the bubbles feature, and then I can click anywhere in this box as it's highlighted now. And
okay.
Oh, what? Did it come up? Yeah, there it goes. And so now you can drag on there and be able to move that up. Now I may have gotten, oh, what did I click on here? Now somehow I've gotten this, you guys seen my chat? Oh, I'm sorry, that's my other screen. So yeah, as I pull on there, bigger and smaller, I'm going to give you guys full screen again here so you can see. So I just toggle that. And as you can see, if they're really big, it's really hard to tell where anything's going on there. But you can still do the hover feature and find out about those. But that's just dragging, making those bigger and smaller. And the same thing, if I change the visualization type to dot density, we can change those dots as well. Now one thing on the population, let me see if I can find out my population map here. I'm going to look at population density. Now here we can see the density of the population. It's fairly easy to see across the United States where areas are more populated and more dense. But we can also click on this on the right-hand side here. It gives us a nice guide of what color each colors represent. But we can also change those colors too to be able to see if there's, again, sometimes we might be have students who have color blindness and might need to be able to see more colors, or certain ones are harder to be distinguished. So there are lots of different visualization types here too, depending on what you're trying to focus on. So all the customizations of this makes it really nice and really easy to be able to use. It's a great question though, Mike. Anything else?
No, it's been very clear. Helpful.
Great. You know, and we're really excited to continue to work with you and others on this, and hope you guys come back to our future sessions so we can give you a little bit more of the tools and help you feel comfortable jumping into this a little bit more and creating individual projects. We have a lot of projects in mind already. We've used some of these outside resources like Warmth of Other Suns and The Great Migration, Letters to the Chicago Defender. But, you know, with movies like Selma just coming out, somebody might want to focus on Selma and how the population changes. So in the early mid-1900s sparked the civil rights movements that occurred there and why those things might be occurring. And you know, another way to engage students, maybe books aren't all what we want to prescribe all the time, but if there's a movie that we can pair that to or something that creates more interest, we can as well. Ferguson, Missouri is one that we have a project for as well because of the sparked interest in that. Well, I appreciate your time and taking your time to join us tonight and joining in as well and providing your feedback and input. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email us. I will respond to the email with those projects, the links to the projects that we've looked at here today, so you can look at those a little bit more and play around. The best way to get comfortable with this is, just kind of jumping in and searching around, dragging, dropping, finding out what sparks your interest. But I do appreciate your time taken today and won't take up any more of it, so thank you for joining us this evening.